Get it. All right, man. All right. You already know what it is. Back at it again with another episode. Welcome back. Welcome back, everyone who has been watching and everyone who has, who just started watching. New to the show, new to to the fam. Glad to have you. Old to the fam. Glad you've been here for me the whole ride. And, I'm just using too many hands. So today's episode is something that is just something I've been wanting to talk about for a while, particularly because it does concern the mental health of African American women, it's something that realistically I didn't touch on before, and I don't think really is touched on properly as it is. Granted, the mental health of Black people in general isn't touched or covered or even talked about as much as it should be. But particularly, I did choose to break these two episodes and split them into different episodes because of the fact that it is a large topic to cover. And I didn't want to just kind of cram everything into one episode. I wanted to kind of split it up and get it between two. So, what are we going to be covering today? Well, what we're going to be covering today is a few different things. You already know I have my main points, in which we're going to be covering a few mental health issues discuss, that are covered, not covered, but that are, witnessed or dealt with in the Black community with, as it pertains to African American women. I'm going to kind of discuss, just give, read the articles and also give personal advice on how to overcome it, a little bit. I'm going to try to give at least a little bit of statistics on the amount of, not mental health issues that plague Black women today. When I say try to, because it's a lot to cover. It's a lot, so I'm not going to cover everything. I may revisit this topic, or I may revisit something else, or, what have you. But this is something that is a continuation of last week's episode, and it's going to be like the final part of it. Maybe next week I'm going on to something else. I may revisit this again at one point if new information comes out or a new study comes out. But I do have a lot of stuff planned. So, as always, shameless plugs aside, like, comment, subscribe, share, all the general stuff that, I actually do every single week, and I feel like strongly that you should. If you want to, I'm going to leave, all my social medias in there, all that stuff. Please follow them. Mostly Instagram. I dropped Twitter. My phone's kind of crazy. Drop Twitter. Follow me on Instagram. I'm going to be posting a lot more stuff on there pertaining to podcasts. Use that for my dad account, but I'm going to be posting a lot more stuff on there for the channel. Updates, stuff like that. So that's one way you can contact me. If not, and another way is I'm gonna leave my Discord link in the description below. If you want to get at me like that, anybody who has my personal contact information and wants to get on the podcast can always come up to me at any given time, and y'all already know the deal. So without further ado, all that aside, let's get into it. So, what we're looking at right now is this article from Johns Hopkins Medical. It is discussing the mental health among African American women and kind of different statistics of it. So let's kind of get into it. It's my first. I'm gonna say it's my first time reading up on this, but I have talked about it a couple times with a couple different women. I've always thought of this as the major issue, one of the major issues inside of the Black community, especially when it pertains to our women. But that's just how it is. So let's just talk about a couple things first. So first and foremost, as if I didn't mention it in the other video, or if I didn't, if I didn't mention it in the previous video about men, or I didn't mention it at the beginning of this, as it's going to be reiterated now, iterated for the first time, anyone can experience mental illness. There is no group, gender, sexual identity, race, or cultural belief that can prevent this from occurring. And that's pretty much true. No matter who you are, what you do, or how you react, or how you do things, you're sometimes it's just gonna happen. You can be a straight man, you could be a trans man, woman, or non-binary, or whatever the case may be. You could be black, white, Hispanic, Asian, Indian, yada yada yada, Native Americans, and it all seems the same. It all starts roots the same. You can experience this all on its own. You know what I'm saying? All like just experience this in either a multitude, or you can experience it at different sectors, and that's something that really really needs to be discussed when it comes to that, because black women, I feel like, don't put enough emphasis on their own health when it comes down to the mental portion of it, when it comes down to the physical portion of it, or the emotional. It just they depend on themselves being so strong that it ends up hurting them in the long run. By that I mean, and don't come at me, don't at me on this one, but by that I mean is they are so used to being so well put together, everything's well thought out, and a bunch of other things. But when it comes down to the nitty gritty of it all, you can't hold it all in, and that's one of the biggest problems as it concerns black men in the black community, is where we just supposed to hold it all in. We're trained or taught to hold it all in ourselves and not let it out, and that's unhealthy. That's unhealthy mentally. That's unhealthy emotionally, and it can even lead to physical and, physical complications. So and this is especially heinous for okay, so this is especially true for black women, for one reason only, because they're encoded, well, not even encoded, but they're taught and brought up to be so independent all the time, and so like, well, I don't need anybody and everything. Well, not even that. Not even need anybody. I don't need to tell anybody what's going on. I don't need to let anything be known, because nobody's gonna care. And that's just the thing that they have been taught, what they've been shown, what they've been used to, and this doesn't change their minds. This is what's stuck in there. This is what I've been told, and this is how it is. Instead of looking at themselves and being like, yeah, I should probably tell somebody, or I should probably go out and reach out for some level of help. No, it's just like they want to hold it in because that's what they have to do to keep everything together. So, as again, anyone can experience mental illness. It doesn't matter what can be. So, first and foremost, you have to make mental illness is your priority. But before we get into that, let's kind of talk about a few different things. African American mental health. Name of the episode. Mental health conditions do not discriminate based on race, color, gender. Just stated. Anybody can experience it. Although anyone can develop mental health problems, African Americans sometimes experience more severe forms of mental health conditions due to unmet needs or other barriers. According to the Health and Human Services Office of Minority Health, African Americans are 10% more likely to experience serious psychological distress. African Americans, like many minority communities, are also more likely to experience socio-economical disparities, such as exclusion from health, education, social, and economic resources. These disparities may contribute to worse mental health outcomes. Now, I just want that to sink in. I just want that to actually sink in for most people. So if you didn't know, what it just basically said is that although anybody can realistically develop can develop mental health issues, most of the time, well, not even most of the time, African Americans are 10 times more likely 10 times, not 5, not 2, but 10 times more likely to experience serious psychological distress. And furthering that portion, as I stated in another video, it has to do with the climate that we are in. So if we are excluded from healthcare, if our education system is bad, if the society that we're, or the environment that we're bred in and live in is horrible, it's not going to come as a surprise that this stuff happens at a higher rate. Because look at your neighborhood, right? If you live in suburbia, this kind of excludes you, but it includes you at the same time. So pay attention. So peep this, right? In most black communities, specifically, I'm gonna use myself for an example. I lived in the Walnut Park East, I think Walnut Park West portion of St. Louis, Missouri. That's where I'm from. And there were little to no access to clinics or hospitals. The nearest hospital was Born Shooters Hospital on Kings Highway. There was a bunch of like free clinics and everything scattered everywhere. There's like a clinic right down the street on Riverview. Other than that, there weren't wasn't much health related outlets to go to, especially when it came down to the psychological portion of it, because the only thing that we needed was help from a physical standpoint, patching up the wounds, making sure that we're okay, making sure we don't die from any sicknesses, just stuff like that. But not knowing that is something, not knowing that the mental side of everything can affect you just as well, or just as hard. For example, even an example of that, growing up in that environment makes it to where you believe that access to healthcare is just something that white people have. And I'll say it, there's just growing up in an area, you just think it's a white person thing. It's like, oh, you gotta go out to the white neighborhoods to get the good doctors, or just general stuff like that. And even then, inside the confines of the African American community, we make it hard for other members of our community to come out with any type of mental health issue, because they're deemed as weird or soft, weak, pitiful. Why are you depressed? Is a white person thing. Black people don't get depressed. Those are general things that are told to black people, and it's disparaging. Nobody wants to hear all that. Nobody wants to hear that when it comes down to their mental health or mental, their mind state at that point. That's not something they want to hear. They want to hear encouragement. They want to hear all this positive energy. They want to feel all this positive energy. They don't want that negativity, and that's how they put it as. But nobody wants to listen to that. Nobody wants to get that going and get that rolling. So that's just how it is. So that is a factor into that 10% if you really didn't know. As far as education, we all know, and this is notorious. If you haven't known this, that means there's something wrong with you. The education system in the black communities is absolutely horrid. They teach you about everything except for black history, and that's just to keep us dumbed down. That's another video for another time. But they don't give us as much as we need. Like the funding that they give Caucasian schools or county schools, or even just kind of general stuff like that, or just say it's just white schools. In all honesty, just giving them most of the funding because they're in more prestigious areas, or they live in a certain place, so they live a certain lifestyle. And I get it. Don't get me wrong. Taxes do play a major portion into how the education system is, but at the same time, why does it play such a large portion of how the education system is? That to the extent that African American communities don't have access to the same amount of educational background, but educational resources when it comes down to it all, as white neighborhoods. What? Because our taxes are lower, or is it just because our tax money doesn't mean anything to you? And even on that, to that point of the education system being so horrid, it doesn't teach you anything. And they fill the schools up with two type of teachers. Two, you either get the teacher who doesn't want to be there. Well, a few different types, but I'm gonna just kind of talk about two. You either get a teacher that doesn't want to be there, that all the time throws it up in your face, that, I got my degree. I got my degree. So you trying to get yours. I don't need this. You need this. And all that. And then you have the teachers who do care. Or some, in that same category, some that pretend to care. And they just want to get the recognition. They don't want to help the children. They want to get the children to help them progress in their career, in their lives. So that's a very harsh detriment. And even within that, the construct of the schooling system in the black community is just god awful. We mostly live, and it's just, this is every school, so it's just not in the black community, but we mostly live in in the school district where sports in general are regarded higher than grades. So sports teams get the priority on everything. Something goes wrong with a captain of the football team, you just sweep it under the rug. Sweep it under the rug and pretend that it didn't happen, or allow the bully to keep continuously bully every kid, that they want to, without addressing the issue or letting it be solved in a natural way. Is just do whatever means necessary. Whatever means necessary. And this is one of those things that has to stop. If we want to progress as a black community and thrive, we need to fix a lot of things. Fix a lot of things so that we can grow as people. When it concerns black women, though, let me just tell you, when it concerns black women, most of the time they aren't notified on a lot of things. They aren't notified with a lot of things, especially when it comes down to the mental health portion. They generally, from their aunties, their moms, cousins, sisters, they're told about the physical aspects of the physical, health issues that they could be facing. So, go get your checkups, go get your shots, go to the OBGYN doctor, make sure everything is good down there. Go get a pap smear, stuff like that. But they aren't told about the scary unknown that is mental health. So that exclusion, all in and of itself, is one of the main reasons why black women don't come out saying that they have some type of issue mentally, because they think that you're crazy. And that's the first thing that happens. People think that when you say mental illness or mental health issues, you think of crazy automatically. So most black women don't have resources